today, we're diving into the really chilling story of a social media star who built this huge online empire based on comedy and impersonations, all while hiding a truly dark reality, one of control, abuse, and ultimately murder. This is the story of the TikTok killer. So, this is where it all begins, with this 911 call. But what sounds like a husband in a panic discovering a horrible scene? Well, it was actually a calculated performance. See, the man on the phone, TikTok star Ali Abulaban, he wasn't a shocked husband. He was the killer. And this was his first attempt to control the narrative.
To really understand how this all unraveled, we have to start on the day of the murders, October 21st, 2021. This is the day that carefully crafted public image didn't just crack, it completely shattered. So let's take a look at the timeline of that awful day.
Okay, what's so wild about this timeline is just how cold and methodical it all is. You can see it right there. He's listening in. He drives there armed. He commits the murders. And this part is just truly chilling, he goes and picks up his 5-year-old daughter from school like nothing happened before making that fake 911 call. But see, to the old side world, this kind of violence was just unimaginable. To his nearly 1 million followers, Ali Abulaban wasn't a killer. He was a character, a comedian, a rising star. So let's rewind a bit and see the online empire he built on this complete facade. As Jin Kid, Ali was known for these super high-energy skits. His impersonations of characters like Tony Montana from Scarface and his parodies of video games like Skyrim, that was his whole ticket to fame. He was loud, he was funny, and people just loved it. And they really loved it. At his absolute peak, he had almost 1 million followers on TikTok alone. So we're not talking about some small-time creator here. He had built a serious platform with a really dedicated audience that saw him as this charismatic, totally relatable entertainer. And this was the image he was selling to the world. A picture-perfect family. He'd met his wife Anna while he was stationed in the Air Force. On social media, they were the ideal couple, living it up in a luxury San Diego apartment. And what's really key here is that Anna and their daughter weren't just in his life. They were basically props in his content, used to sell this image of a happy, successful family man. But of course, that perfect image, it was a complete lie. Behind all the carefully edited skids and the laughter, a very, very different reality was playing out. So now, let's look at what was happening when the camera was off, where laughter was replaced by threats, control, and this relentless cycle of abuse. This was captured in one of Ali's own recordings, and it just shows you the cruelty he aimed at Anna. He would weaponize her background, her immigration status, anything he could to belittle and control her. This was the real Ali, the one his 940,000 followers never, ever saw. And, this wasn't all happening in total secret. The abuse was escalating, and it was starting to spill out into the open. Police were called to their apartment multiple times just between July and October of 2021. Ali would even go on live streams to publicly humiliate Anna. She felt so trapped that she actually started looking into getting a restraining order. So what you have here is this clear and absolutely terrifying pattern. His jealousy had become this obsession. He used his online platform not for comedy, but to tear down his own wife. He was secretly recording her, constantly harassing her, and trapping her in this cycle of abuse. For Anna, it must have felt like there was no way out. And that brings us to the central question of this entire case, right? How does this pattern of emotional abuse and control finally cross the line into a calculated double murder? Well, the answer, it lies in a child's toy. Okay, let's be very clear about this. This was not a snap decision. This was not a crime of passion, which is what Ali would later claim. His actions were cold, they were calculated, and they were meticulously planned. Let's look at how he set his trap, the very trap that would become the undeniable proof of premeditation. So, he'd been kicked out of the apartment, but that need for control was just absolute. So what does he do? He researches spy methods, he installs an app on his own daughter's iPad, sneaks it into the apartment, and then just listens, constantly, from his hotel nearby, just waiting to catch her with someone else. Think about how sinister that is for a second. He weaponized a device that's meant for cartoons and games, and he turned it into a tool for surveillance, all to feed his own paranoia. This one single act would become a critical piece of evidence, proving his intent to murder was anything but impulsive. And all of this brings us to the trial, where Ali Abuleben, the TikTok performer, would take censor stage for one last time. This was it. This was his final performance, an attempt to act his way out of a life sentence. The whole trial really boiled down to this one conflict. His defense team argued he just snapped, a crime of passion. But the prosecution, they laid out a totally different story. A man who spied on his wife, who copied her apartment key, and then calmly drove across town with a loaded gun. That's not passion, that is a plan. The evidence against him was just overwhelming. The prosecution presented his own abusive recordings, security footage of him walking calmly into the elevator with a gun, and, most chillingly of all, an audio recording from his own phone that actually captured the sound of the murders themselves. His digital life literally became his own undoing. This statement from the prosecution, it just perfectly captures the man the jury saw behind that Jin Kid mask. A complete narcissist, driven by his own ego, whose online persona was just another tool for manipulation. A man for whom the lives of Anna Abuleben and Rayburn Barron meant absolutely nothing. In the end, the jury saw right through the performance. They found him guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder, and the judge handed down 2 consecutive life sentences. And just to make it absolutely crystal clear, the judge added another 50 years to life on top of that, ensuring he will never have the possibility of parole. Ali Abuleben will die in prison. His final performance failed. This whole story is just a tragic reminder that the characters we see online are often just that, characters. And it leaves us with a really difficult question. In a world where everyone is projecting a perfect life, what are we missing? And how do we learn to see the danger that might be hiding right there, in plain sight?